We're live now.
يلا فضيلة الدكتور تفضل الآن.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اهتدى بهديه واستنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد، فلا شك أن شهر رمضان متعلق بركن من أركان الإسلام وهو الصيام، حيث أن الإسلام بني على 5 كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم في الحديث الصحيح: بني الإسلام على 5: شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله، وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة وصوم رمضان وحج بيت الله الحرام من استطاع إليه سبيلا. نعم.
أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا. Indeed, all praises are due to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His aid, and we seek His assistance. Whomsoever Allah the Most High guides, there are none to misguide, and whomsoever Allah the Most High misguides, there are none to guide. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship in truth except for Allah, having no partners, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His slave and messenger. To proceed, there is no doubt that fasting the month of Ramadan is one of the pillars of Islam, of which there are 5, as reported in the hadith on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Islam is built upon 5, i.e. 5 pillars. That the testification that there is no deity worthy of worship in truth except for Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His messenger, to establish the prayer, to give the zakah, to fast in Ramadan, and also to make pilgrimage, the Hajj, to the house of Allah. نعم شيخنا أثابكم الله.
والصوم له فضائل عظيمة جدا، كما قال الله تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. فتقوى الله سبحانه وتعالى ثمرة عظيمة من ثمرات الصوم، كما جاءت أحاديث كثيرة تدل على فضل الصيام. فمن ذلك قول صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو يهنئ ويبشر أصحابه بدخول هذا الشهر الكريم: أظلكم شهر رمضان فيه تضاعف الحسنات وفيه تغل الشياطين وتفتح أبواب الجنان وتغلق أبواب النيران، فيه ليلة من حرمها فقد حرم الخير كله، أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. نعم.
أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا. And we also see that this month of Ramadan, it has a great many virtues. From them we see in the verse where Allah the Most High says, "O you who have believed, fasting has been prescribed upon you as it was prescribed upon those who came before you, so that you may attain taqwa, awareness and consciousness of Allah that impacts upon your conduct." And this taqwa is a great fruit that is born from fasting. Similarly, there are a great many ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that show the benefit and the virtue of fasting. From them is where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Indeed, a great month has come unto you. It is a month in which Allah the Most High, or it's a month in which the rewards are multiplied. It's a month in which the devils are shackled. It's a month in which the gates of the paradise are opened and the gates of the hellfire are closed. It's a month in which there is a night that is better than 1,000 months, and whosoever is bereft of its goodness, then they have been bereft of something great indeed, or they have a great bereft indeed. Naam Shaykhana, Thabakum Allah.
ومما جاء في فضل رمضان قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم في الحديث المتفق عليه: من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. وقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أيضا فيما رواه أبي هريرة في الحديث المتفق عليه: من قام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. وقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم: من قام ليلة القدر إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. نعم.
Also, we see the virtues of this blessed month through the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it's been reported by Imam Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala an, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whosoever fasts Ramadan, having faith and seeking Allah's reward, their sins will be forgiven." And he also said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Whosoever stands the night in prayer in Ramadan, out of faith and seeking the reward of Allah, then they will have their sins forgiven." And also another narration, also on the authority of Abu Hurairah, and it's agreed upon, i.e. reported by Imams Bukhari and Muslim, that whosoever stands the night of Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, having faith and seeking the reward in Allah, they will have their sins forgiven. Naam Shaykhana, Fabakum Allah.
ومما يدل على فضل هذا الشهر ما ورد من الأحاديث الكثيرة كقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم فيما يرويه عن ربه أن الله سبحانه وتعالى يقول: كل عمل ابن آدم له إلا الصوم فإنه لي وأنا أجزي به، يدع شهوته وطعامه من أجلي. فنجد أن الله سبحانه وتعالى جعل جزاء الصيام إليه سبحانه وتعالى، ولا شك هذا يدل على أن أجر الصيام عظيم جدا جدا. وكذلك قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم: الصوم جنة، وإذا كان صوم أحدكم فلا يرفث ولا يسخط، وإن حاجه أحد أو خاصمه أو قاتله فليقل إني امرئ صائم. نعم.
أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا. And we also see that there are a great number of ahadith reported about the virtues of Ramadan. From them, the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, where he reported that Allah the Most High said, "All of the actions of the sons of Adam are for them, except for fasting, for indeed it is for me, and I will recompense or give the reward for it." And then he describes, "Indeed, my slave has left off their desires for me. They have left off their desires and their food and drink for me." So we see in this hadith that the reward for fasting is great, as it is connected to Allah and His infinite generosity. And this is a great thing indeed. And we also see from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said that indeed fasting is a shield. So let not one of you say foul speech or act in an ignorant way, and if someone argues with them, then they should say, "Indeed, I'm a fasting person," and that's how they should repel this evil that they have or that they face. Naam Shaykhana.
وكذلك قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم في بيان فضل صوم رمضان: رمضان إلى رمضان كفارة ما بينهن. وكذلك قول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في بيان فضل الصوم مطلقا، سواء كان صوم الفرض أو النافلة، أنه يبين أن من صام يوما في سبيل الله باعد الله وجهه عن النار. والله سبحانه وتعالى بين أثر الصيام وفائدة الصيام، وهي زيادة التقوى وزيادة الإيمان، وهذا يكون بفعل الأوامر واجتناب النواهي. نعم.
أحسن الله عز وجل إليكم شيخنا. We also see that the virtue of fasting in the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that indeed Ramadan to Ramadan is an expiation of the sins that come between them. And we also see that these are virtues. There are virtues as relates to fasting in a general sense, irrespective of whether it's obligatory fasting or it's optional fasting. And from that is the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said that indeed whoever fasts a day in the way of Allah, then Allah will distance them from the fire. He will distance their face from the fire. And Allah the Most High, as we've already seen, He explains and shows the great virtue and the great fruits of fasting, in that it increases the iman of the individual, the faith of the individual, and also the taqwa, the consciousness of Allah that has an impact upon their actions on the individual. And this is by the iman, and the taqwa is impacted by the individual doing and performing the things that Allah the Most High has ordered, and refraining and abstaining from the things that He has censured and forbidden for them. Naam Shaykhana.
وهذه العلة تجعل المسلم يفكر تفكيرا جيدا ويتأمل لهذه الحكمة العظيمة، أن يستغل هذا الشهر بطاعة الله تعالى، ولا يضيع لحظة من لحظاته ولا وقت إلا وهو عامل له في طاعة الله تعالى، ولا يشغله بما يضيع عليه أجر الصيام ويفوت عليه فضله، فتجده يحافظ على سمعه، يحافظ على بصره وعلى سائر جوارحه، ولا يفعل حرام ليزداد تقوى ويزداد إيمان. ولذلك جاء في الحديث الصحيح النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كما رواه أهل السنن: من لم يدع قول الزور والعمل به فليس لله حاجة أن يدع طعامه وشرابه. نعم.
When the Muslim looks at these factors and looks at these positive impacts of fasting upon their life, then this is something that makes the Muslim think and really consider how they can make the best of the month of Ramadan, and how they can take advantage of this opportunity and the time that they have in front of them, such that they do not waste their time and they do not busy themselves with things that do not increase them in Iman, or do not, or in fact decrease the reward for fasting. So you will find that the Muslim who considers and contemplates, they are someone who is conscious and conscientious, actually, of what they hear, of what they look at, and also the rest of their limbs. They're conscientious and they take due diligence and care over what they do. And in this way, their iman, their faith, will increase. And this is as stated by the Prophet ﷺ, or this diligence is highlighted in the hadith. Indeed, whosoever does not leave off foul speech and acting upon it, then indeed Allah has no need for them to leave off their eating and drinking, i.e. Allah has no need for them to fast. Naam Shaykhna.
وهذه العلة تجعل الإنسان يهتم بهذا الشهر فيبتعد عن المحرمات، لا كما يفعله كثير من الناس في هذا الموسم المبارك، فتضيع عليهم الأيام، أو يرون هذا الرمضان ضيف ثقيل. ولذلك لا بد أن نفكر في قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم: إيمانا واحتسابا. الإنسان يفرح بهذا الشهر ويفرح بهذا الصيام وإن كان فيه نوع مشقة، ويحتسب الأجر عند الله، ويؤمن بالله ويؤمن بوعده ووعيده، هذا أمر مهم جدا. نعم.
أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا. So the Muslim, you will find that the Muslim who realizes this, they will give due importance to Ramadan in another way. Namely, they will stay away from the muharramat, those things that they have been commanded to refrain from and commanded to stay away from. And this is so that they do not waste this time, this precious time and these precious days that are in front of them. Because indeed this Ramadan that we have, this month that we have, is a noble guest. And the individual should think about the statement of the Prophet ﷺ in those previous narrations that we mentioned, having faith and seeking the reward of Allah the Most High. So the individual, when they face this month, they face it and they are happy with the month. Even if there is a kind of hardship or there is a kind of difficulty in practicing in it, or practicing it and standing up with these acts of worship, the individual, rather, their belief in Allah, the promise of Allah that He will give them the reward, and the promise that those who disobey Him will punish them, then this belief motivates them and stimulates them. نعم شيخنا.
هذا الشهر المبارك أنواع الناس فيه كثيرة، فبعض الناس جعله شهر للأكل والشرب والتفنن في المأكولات والمشروبات، وبعضهم جعله شهرا للسهر على المسلسلات ومشاهدة المباريات، وبعضهم جعله شهرا للنظر إلى الأفلام الخليعة، وبعضهم جعله شهرا للالتقاء بالأصحاب وتضييع الأوقات بما حرم الله، وبعضهم جعله شهرا ثقيلا عليه، وخاصة إذا كان عنده أعمال أو عمل ووظائف، فتجده لا يهتم بالصيام وربما يفرط فيه، ولا يجعل وقتا أيضا للعبادة والطاعة، فوقته ضائع بين النوم والسهر مع أصحابه وعمله. وبعضهم، وخاصة بعض الأبناء أو بعض العوائل، تجدهم ربما ينامون النهار كله، وخاصة في أوقات الإجازة، فيسهرون بالليل ثم ينامون بالنهار، وهذا يجعلهم يفوتون صلاة الفجر ربما وصلاة الظهر والعصر، ولا يستيقظون من النوم إلا بعد العشاء أو بعد المغرب. ولا شك أن الصلاة أعظم من الصيام. إذا كان الإنسان يصوم ولا يصلي فهذا كافر، فلا ينفعه صومه، فلا بد من الصلاة، فمن لم يأتي بها ولم يصلي فهو كافر، نسأل الله السلامة والعافية. نعم.
أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا. We find that when this month of Ramadan comes, the people in relation to the month of Ramadan, they are a great many categories, and there are different types. The different people approach this month differently. So we'll find that there are some people who they concern themselves in this month with the consumption of food and also the making of food. And the Sheikh used a term that made us think that they expend effort in making exquisite cuisines and different types of food. So their busyment during this month is on food and drink. There are others who spend this month and they use their time during this month to watch serials, i.e. to watch these TV programs. Others similarly who waste their time watching films to make the time pass. There are other people who during the month they use it as an opportunity to meet with their friends and socialize and spend their time doing those things that are prohibited. There are others who, when the month comes, they're working, and work is that they find that when the month comes, it's burdensome upon them. It's very heavy and difficult. So, due to this and due to their inability to balance the two, they are negligent as relates to this month, and they spend their time during this month between sleeping and going to work and socializing. So they don't take the opportunity as relates to the month. And then there's another type of individual, and this is prevalent with the youngsters, that during this month, they sleep during the day and they are awake during the night. And this is especially one of the practices when it's the holidays, it's the school holidays and the college holidays, etc. And there's a great danger in doing this, because if the individual sleeps during the day, then often they will miss the Salat al-Dhuhr or the Asr, and they'll wake up at Maghrib and know that the Salah, the prayer, is more important and it's greater than the fasting, because whosoever leaves off the prayer, they have apostated and they've come out of the religion. So it's absolutely essential that the individual carries out the Salah, and it is of more importance in the religion of Allah than even the fasting. نعم شيخنا.
ولنعلم أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من اهتمامه بهذا الشهر أنه يجتهد في هذا الشهر ما لا يجتهد في غيره من الشهور، ولذلك كان أجود الناس وأجود ما يكون في رمضان، وكان يدارسه جبريل عليه الصلاة والسلام بالقرآن كل ليلة، ويجتهد أيضا في العشر الأواخر منه أكثر مما يجتهد في غيره، فكان يعتزل النساء ويعتكف ويشد المأزر ويقوم الليل كله، وهكذا أيضا أصحابه، فلقد كانوا أروا الله الصدق في اجتهادهم في هذا الشهر المبارك. وهكذا حال السلف بما يطول الحديث عنه، حتى أنهم ينقطعون عن العلم وطلب العلم وغيره، لأن هذا الشهر شهر يتفرغ الإنسان فيه للعبادة والخلوة بربه والاجتهاد من الطاعة، حتى إذا دخل عليه الشهر تغفر ذنوبه ولا يدخل في ما دعا الرسول عليهم رغم أنف من دخل عليه رمضان ولم يغفر له أو غيرها. هذه النقطة مهمة جدا، أن نقرأ سيرة السلف الصالح كيف كانوا يجتهدون في العبادة في رمضان ما يجتهدون في غيره، وينقطعون فيه عن كل شيء. نعم.
أحسن الله عز وجل إليكم شيخنا. When we look to the conduct of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, during this month, we find that he gave this month a great deal of importance, and he used to strive in his worship during this month, that which he did not strive outside the month. And he was at his peak of generosity, peace and blessings be upon him, during this month. And during the month of Ramadan, Jibreel alayhi salam, he used to sit with him and revise the Quran al-Kareem with him. And this was generally during the month of Ramadan. Then when we come out of this and we look at the last 10 nights, we find that his efforts were even multiplied further, where it was reported that he would tighten his belt, he would wake his family up for worship, and he would spend the night in worship. And this was his example, peace and blessings be upon him. So we find that following his example, his companions and the pious predecessors, the Salaf, they used to do the same, to the extent where those who were scholars, they would stop from the seeking of knowledge, and they would stop in their busyness of knowledge, and they would take up instead acts of worship during this month. So this is a month in which the individual should strive to worship Allah even more than usual. They should strive even more than usual, so that they can come out of the month and they are free of sin and they have had their sins forgiven. As was stated in the hadith, the narration of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, where Jibreel, he made the dua and he said words to the effect of, woe unto the one who comes to Ramadan and does not have their sins forgiven. So this is a really important thing, that we exit the month having had our sins forgiven. And it's of the utmost importance for us to read the biographies of the pious predecessors, the early Muslims from the Sahaba and those who came after them. And in particular, we focus on their acts of worship and how they used to worship Allah, especially at blessed times like Ramadan. Naam, Shaykhana.
فيجتهد الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم في رمضان ما لا يجتهد في غيره. وهذا مما يبين لنا أهمية هذا الشهر وأهمية أن نستغل كل لحظة فيه. فليله نحييه بالقيام، ونهاره نحييه بالصيام وقراءة القرآن والذكر والتسبيح وحفظ أسماعنا وأبصارنا وسائر جوارحنا عما حرم الله. فإن لله في كل ليلة عتقاء من النار، والله يزين جنته كل ليلة، ويقول يوشك أن يردك المتقون. فالإنسان يجتهد في هذا الشهر المبارك اجتهاد عظيم جدا ما لا يجتهد في غيره من الشهور، ويحرص على أن لا يخرج هذا الشهر إلا وقد غفرت الذنوب وحطت سيئاته، وذلك بالتزامه أمر الله وحرصه على طاعة الله. فإن للصائم كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فرحتان، فرحة عند فطره وفرحة عند لقاء ربه. ولله في كل ليلة عتقاء يعتق ناس استوجبوا النار فأعتق الله رقابهم بسبب اجتهادهم في الصيام والعمل الصالح. فنجتهد أيها الإخوة في هذه الأيام ونتواصى ألا يضيع علينا لحظة من لحظات هذا الشهر إلا ونحن نعمرها بطاعة الله تعالى. نعم.
Sabakum Allah wa baraka fikum, Shaykhana. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and the early Muslims, they used to expend every effort and they used to worship and strive in such a way that they didn't outside of this blessed month. And they would take benefit from every moment of this month, and they would take benefit from the days and the nights, such that their nights would be spent in prayer, in the night prayer, and their days they would spend them fasting, reciting the Quran, making remembrance of Allah, glorifying Allah the Most High. And while they were doing this, they would also be diligent to guard their tongues from that which is prohibited, and also guard their limbs from carrying out the actions that are prohibited. And we mentioned that Allah the Most High has people who are freed from the fire during this month. And it is that, or it may be that, the individual, through their worship and their hard work and their striving in this month, they can attain this reward and they can attain this outcome. And it may be that the individual, they come out of Ramadan and they exit Ramadan, and due to their diligence and their hard work and their striving, that their sins are forgiven. And that is by doing the things that Allah the Most High has ordered with and abstaining from the things that He has prohibited. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that indeed the fasting person has two periods. There are two times when they have joy or happiness. The first is when they open their fast, and the second when they meet their Lord, may He be glorified. And Allah the Most High has people who He has saved from the fire. And this is people who were deserving of the fire, but due to their fasting, due to their standing in prayer, Allah the Most High saved them. So it is absolutely essential that we work hard and we strive during this month. Naam, Shaykhana.
فالصوم هو التعبد لله تعالى بالإمساك عن المفطرات من طلوع الفجر إلى غروب الشمس. فإذا طلع الفجر يجب على المسلم أن يمتنع عن الأكل والشرب والجماع وسائر المفطرات إلى غروب الشمس. فإذا أذن المؤذن صلاة الفجر، أو إذا كان ليس هناك مؤذن فيعلم هذا عن طريق الساعة والتوقيت أن الآن دخل أذان الفجر والآن غربت الشمس، أو يراها الإنسان بعينه غربت. والمفطرات الأكل والشرب، وهو معروفان، ويدخل في ذلك ما كان في معنى الأكل والشرب، مثل الإبر المغذية. أما الإبر غير المغذية سواء أعطيت في الوريد أو في العضد فهذه الإبر لا تفطر إذا كانت غير مغذية. فالعبرة أنه ما كان أكل وشرب، أو بمعنى الأكل والشرب يعني أنه يغذي ويقوم مقام الأكل والشرب. ولا بد أيضا من شرط ثاني، أن يكون من منفذ معتبر شرعا وواقعا. لا بد أن يكون من منفذ معتبر شرعا وواقعا. فالعين مثلا ليست منفذ لا واقعي ولا شرعي، فلو وضع الكحل في عينه وهو صائم فصومه، إذا وضع الكحل في عينه أو القطرة في عينه فصومه صحيح، أو القطرة في أذنه فهذا أيضا صومه صحيح. لأن العين ليست منفذ معتبر. المنفذ المعتبر شرعا وواقعا كما هو الآن مستخدم في الطب أيضا هو الفم والأنف. الفم والأنف، فإذا دخل الطعام والشراب عن طريق الفم أو عن طريق الأنف فإنه يفطر، بخلاف ما يدخل عن طريق العين أو الأذن أو حتى ما يسمى بالتحاميل، تحاميل الفرج أو الشرج أو تحاميل توضع أيضا أحيانا في الإحليل، هذه كلها لا تفطر، لأنها ليست منفذ لا شرعي ولا طبعي. نعم.
أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا. Our Sheikh then goes on to explain what fasting actually is. He said that fasting is the act of worshipping Allah through the abstinence, or the abstinence of the things that break the fast from the time of the breaking of Fajr to the setting of the sun. So it's the abstinence and the refraining from the things that break the fast and worshipping Allah the Most High through this from the period of the breaking of Fajr to the setting of the sun. And when we say the things that are breaking the fast, these are three things. The first, eating; the second, drinking; and the third, sexual relations. And there are other things that break the fast that are connected with these three. So if the individual, the time for Fajr comes, or the time for Fajr has come in, and the Mu'adhin calls, then they refrain from these three things. If they're in a place where there is no Mu'adhin who will call the call to prayer, then they rely upon the timing of Fajr when it comes in. They use the watch or phone or whatever, and they stop and refrain from these three things. As for the first two, as we said, they are eating and drinking, but also that which carries the meaning of eating and drinking, that which replaces eating and drinking, anything that nourishes or hydrates, for example. So when we look at injections that are injected into the body, the injections that give nourishment or give the meaning of hydration in the terms of drinking, then these injections, they break the fast because they carry and they are similar to the meaning of eating and drinking. As for the injections that do not carry this meaning, that they do not nourish the body, nor do they hydrate the body, then these are not with the meaning of eating and drinking, so they do not break the fast. As for taking in or ingesting food or drink, then there are two prerequisites for it to break the fast. The first of those is that it's ingested through a reckoned and deemed orifice, an opening in the body that's reckoned and deemed. Reckoned and deemed, that's in the Sharia, and that's in the natural sense. So, for example, the eye is an orifice, meaning that it's something through which something external can enter the body. So that something can enter through the eye. So if the individual puts the kuhl, the eye, like the powder for the eye, then this doesn't carry the meaning of eating and drinking, nor does it enter the body through a reckoned orifice. And the Sheikh explains what the reckoned orifices are shortly. Similarly, if someone uses eardrops, this is something that doesn't break the fast, because again, the ear is not a reckoned or deemed orifice. What are the deemed and reckoned orifices are two. The first is the mouth, and the second is the nose. So if something enters these two with the meaning that's conveyed, i.e. of eating and drinking or nourishment or hydration, then this breaks the fast. In contrast to that which enters the body through the eye or through the ear. And for example, if it's through any other orifice, whether it's through the penis, akramakumullah, or any other place, then it's not one of the reckoned orifices in the legislation of Islam. Athabakumullah, na'am shaykhana.
نعم. فهذا هي من المفطرات. ومن المفطرات أيضا الجماع، لقوله تعالى: يذر شهوته. والجماع إذا ثبت أن أولج الرجل ذكره في فرج امرأته والتقى الختانان من غير حائل في نهار رمضان، وكان ممن يجب عليه الصوم، فإنه يلزمه الكفارة المغلظة، وهي عتق رقبة، فإن لم يستطع فلا بد من هذه الضوابط. أولا أن يكون في نهار رمضان، ولذلك في الليل لا يعتبر أو لا يوجب الكفارة المغلظة، وقد نص القرآن على حل جماع المرأة في الليل، قال تعالى: أحل لكم ليلة الصيام الرفث إلى نسائكم. والثاني أن يكون في رمضان وليس في قضاء رمضان، فلو كان في قضاء رمضان ما وجبت الكفارة المغلظة. فلو إنسان مثلا يقضي في رمضان، يقضي قضاء في رمضان، بعد رمضان يقضي في شوال أو في شعبان، فجامع زوجته، فإن صومه يفسد، لكن لا تلزم الكفارة.
شيخنا سامحني، انقطع الصوت فلا ما سمعتكم. لا بس ضعيف جدا شيخنا.
الآن الصوت واضح؟
الآن كان أحسن. نعم،
المجهز بعيد شوي.
هذا ممتاز جدا.
هذه ضوابط وشروط الكفارة في رمضان. كفارة في الجماع: أولا يكون في نهار رمضان، وأن يكون في رمضان لا في قضائه. ثانيا أن يكون جماعا، لو كانت مباشرة وأنزل فلا تلزم الكفارة، لابد أن يكون إيلاج، وأن يكون الإيلاج من غير حائل. والمراد بالحائل غير الحائل المؤثر، لأن ما يسمى بالكبوت أو غيره الذي يوضع على الذكر هذا لا يعتبر حائل، فلو جامع امرأته وهو لابس له فإنه عليه الكفارة المغلظة. والكفارة كما قلنا عتق رقبة، فإن لم يستطع أو لم يجد فصيام شهرين متتابعين، فإن لم يستطع فإطعام 60 مسكين. وهذا قد وقع لأحد الصحابة حينما جامع زوجته في نهار رمضان. نعم.
أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا. The other type of the things that invalidate one's fast is sexual relations. And the Sheikh went on to define the type of relations that invalidate one's fasting. And the evidence that sexual relations is a nullifier or a breaker of the fast is in the hadith that we saw, that Allah the Most High mentions that the slave leaves off their desires for his sake. And the intercourse that we're talking about is if the male puts his private part into the private part of a female, and this is during the day of Ramadan, and yes, during the day of Ramadan, and this is without any barriers, without anything on his private part on the day of Ramadan, and they are from the people of obligation, i.e. they are the people who have to fast on this day. And also the condition is that there is ejaculation as well These are all conditions for the sexual intercourse breaking the fast. So we look at these in the day of Ramadan. It's the private part. There is ejaculation. Number 2. Number 3, there is no barriers. Number 4, it's during the day. Number 5, it's during Ramadan. And number 6, it's the person or the people who are obliged to fast during Ramadan. These are the 6 kind of conditions. So when we say, for example, in the day of Ramadan, it only breaks the fast if it's within the day, because by the text of the Quran, the explicit text of the Quran, Allah the Most High has said it's been permitted for you to have relations with your wife during the night. When we say the day of Ramadan, when we say Ramadan, we mean that the person who is fasting Ramadan for the first time, not the individual who is making up missed fasts for Ramadan after Ramadan. So the month that is after Ramadan is the month of Shawwal. When the month of Shawwal comes, if the individual has to make up their fast and they fall into having sexual intercourse, then it does break the fast, but there isn't what is called the weighted or the more serious expiation, al-kafara al-mughallava. And the Sheikh explains what this is shortly. The only thing that happens if someone is making up their fast in Ramadan and they fall into sexual relations, the only thing that happens is that their fast is broken and it's not counted. There is nothing for them to expiate. And the next condition is that the intercourse, there is ejaculation during it. And the Sheikh said that when he mentions that there is, and also that it is sexual relations and it's not something lesser than that, like hugging or just embracing or something like this. And also when we say that it's without a barrier, the things that, the implements that men wear on their private parts, like condoms and things, these are things that are not considered to be barriers. So for example, if someone were to have intercourse wearing a condom, then this breaks the fast. It does break the fast. So the condom is not considered to be a barrier, and intercourse with it still breaks the fast. And the individual who falls into this, they have to make an expiation. So their fast is broken, but they also have to make an expiation. And this is what's called the greater or the sterner, the harsher expiation, al-kafara al-mughallava. And this is of 3 levels. The first is that they emancipate or free a slave, if there is one to be found. If there isn't, then they go to the stage of fasting 2 months consecutively. 2 months consecutive fasting. If they're unable, then they feed 60 poor people. And this is something that actually happened to one of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Naam, Shaykhana.
وهذه الأمور المفطرات يشترط فيها ما يشترط في سائر العبادات.
عفوا معذرة شيخنا، الصوت ضعيف شوي كمان.
نعم، هذه المفطرات واضح الصوت، يشترط فيها أيضا ما يشترط في سائر العبادات، أن يكون الإنسان مختارا، وهذا يخرج المكره، وأن يكون عامدا، وهذا يخرج المخطئ، وأن يكون عالما، وهذا يخرج الجاهل. والجهل قد يكون جهل بالحكم، وقد يكون جهل بالحال. يعني أنا أعرف أن الأكل مفطر، وأنه لا يجوز لي أن آكل في نهار رمضان، لكن جهلت الحال، فظنيت أن الشمس قد غربت فأكلت. مثل ما وقع لبعض الصحابة، مثل حديث أنس، أسماء أخت عائشة، أسماء بنت أبي بكر، فتقول أكلنا في يوم غائم على عهد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم، يعني أكلوا وهم يظنون أن الشمس غابت، لكن في ما يمنع رؤية الشمس من غبار أو غيم أو كذا، فلما أكلوا طلعت الشمس، يعني هم استعجلوا في الأكل قبل الأذان، فلما أكلوا تبين أن الشمس لم تغب وأنها لا تزال في الأفق، ولم يأمرهم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بالإعادة. وهذا عام، وهذا ما دل عليه حديث النبي أيضا حينما قال: من أكل أو شرب ناسيا فليتم صومه. فالأكل أو النسيان، أو الأكل أو الشرب نسيانا أو خطأ أو جهلا، سواء جهلا بالحكم أو جهل بالحال، فإنه لا يفطر، فهذه ضوابط معروفة. نعم.
ثابكم الله وأحسن الله عز وجل إليكم شيخنا.
نعم.
And with these two breakers of the fast, the conditions for other types of worship are also applicable. And the Sheikh explains what this means. So in order for these two things to break the fast, food, drink, and intercourse, so I've grouped food and drink together there are conditions that must be fulfilled for the individual. So for example, they must be doing it out of choice and not be someone who is forced to do one of these things. The second, they must be doing it on purpose. So this takes out the one who does it by mistake. Thirdly, they must be a person who has knowledge or knows that this is something that breaks the fast. And this knowledge can be either, and this knowledge, it negates ignorance. So if they are, number one, ignorant as relates to the ruling of it, or number two, they're ignorant as relates to the situation and what's going on, then the eating, drinking, or intercourse does not break the fast. And this ignorance of the circumstance, the example of this is the one who thinks and believes that the time for Maghrib has entered or the sun has set, and they open their fast. And then they realize that actually the sun had not set. So this individual is ignorant of the circumstance. This ignorance, it means that their fasting is correct. And this is something that happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ in a hadith reported by Asma bint Abi Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, where there were a group of the companions of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and the time for Maghrib was coming, and in the air, the sky wasn't clear. There was sand, dust in the air, so they couldn't see properly. And they thought the sun had set. So they ate and they broke their fast. And then after some time, the sun set. Yes, the sun set, and they realized that they had opened their... No, it's the opposite. Sorry, Yes. No, so it's the opposite actually. So they thought that it was still time to eat, and they thought that the sun, the Fajr had not come in. So they carried on eating and drinking until it was after the time, until they thought that the time for Fajr had come, and then once they'd finished their eating and drinking, the شيخنا ثابكم الله في حديث أسماء رضي الله تعالى عنها الصحابة أكلوا قبل المغرب أم قبل الفجر؟ قبل المغرب أليس كذلك؟
قبل المغرب أكلوا يظنون أن الشمس قد غابت.
نعم أثابكم الله. نعم. So our Sheikh clarified that this hadith was, as I said first. So it was nearly the time of Maghrib, and they believed that the sun had set, but it hadn't. And they ate, and then they realized that they had eaten too early. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he didn't order them to make up their fast. And he didn't order them that their fast was invalid. And in a general sense, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whosoever eats or drinks and they out of forgetfulness, then let them complete their fasting. So this individual who does it out of forgetfulness has not invalidated their fast. نعم شيخنا أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم.
نعم. فهذه جملة مختصرة في فضل الصيام وبعض أحكام. إذا كان هناك عند الأخ أسئلة نجعل وقت قليل للأسئلة. نعم.
أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا. حقيقة درس ماتع نافع جدا. أسأل الله عز وجل أن يبارك فيكم وأن يتقبل منكم. Abdul Hakim, Sheikh is asking whether there are any questions.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. I'll put out there to see if there's any questions. Bear with me.
Or maybe we can take them and get them answered another time.
I do have some questions from because I'm texting with some deaf people. So
okay. الأخ ينظر شيخنا.
When they're praying, they cannot speak and they cannot sign because they cannot move their hands. So how would they? And they don't know Arabic. So how would they perform the prayers?
So the deaf people, they can't speak, they can't sign in Arabic. So how would they perform the prayers?
You can't sign while they're in the prayers because you have to have your arms crossed. So it's just thinking about it, thinking out the words. Is that good enough?
طيب شيخنا أثابكم الله. السؤال هكذا: المستمعون أغلبهم من الصم، والسؤال ليس متعلق بأحكام الصيام، وسألوا كيف يصلون وهم لا يتكلمون، وبعضهم لا يعرفون لغة الإشارة بالعربية، وكيف يصلون مع أن الصلاة تشرع فيه وضع اليمنى على اليسرى. أثابكم الله. لا شيخنا لا أسمعكم.
أقول يصلون كما يصلي المسلمون وكما صلى الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. فإذا استطاعوا أن يسمعوا أو يفهموا، وإلا فيشتغلوا بقراءة القرآن، قراءة الفاتحة في حال القيام، والتسبيح والتهليل كما هي صلاة الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. إذا كانوا لا يحفظون الفاتحة فيكثرون من قول سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر أثناء قيامهم، وهكذا يفعلون في سجودهم وقيامهم وركوعهم هكذا. أما وضع اليدين على يعني وضع اليمنى على اليسرى على الصدر هذا سنة. إذا يعني لم يستطيعوها أو يحتاجون إلى الإشارة حتى يفهم المصلي أنه في حال ركوع أو في حال سجود أو في حال قيام أو نحو ذلك، فلا بأس أن يبين له ذلك. نعم.
Afabakumullah wa baraka fikum, Shaykhana. So the response to this was that they should pray as much as they can in accordance to the prayer of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And they should read the Fatiha if they are able to. For the one who is not able to read the Fatiha, then they should make the tasbih, subhanallah. So may Allah be glorified. All praises are due to Allah. Allah is the greatest, and there is no deity worthy of worship except for Allah. This is what they should do in their prayer. And this is what they should do in the standing and in the ruku' and in the sujood, in all of the positions of the prayer. As for putting the right hand on the left, on the chest, then this act is sunnah. This is a sunnah act from the salah. So if the individual is in need of moving their hands in these positions to recite, then there is no harm in doing so and not putting the right hand on the left. Afabakumullah wa baraka fikum, Shaykhana.
Yes, mashallah. So they can actually sign the actual prayer when it's out loud, and there's no sin in that then, because they're under the impression that the right hand the arms need to be crossed at all times, so they can't sign it.
But what's their state? They're praying behind someone or they're praying themselves?
They're praying when it's behind someone, then they're following the imam. But when they're by themselves, then they're by themselves, aren't they? So they can actually sign it. It's permissible.
Yeah. So when they're by themselves, it says the Sheikh described.
Okay, mashallah. Okay, I have a question. If you say, for example, you're joining the Tarawih and you come in late, but you haven't prayed Isha, can you, when the Imam is reciting and is leading a prayer, can you make the first two of his two your fard, and then when he gives taslim, you get up and finish off two more?
Yeah.
Is that permissible?
أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا هل يجوز لمن لم يصلي العشاء أن يلتحق بصلاة التراويح بنية العشاء وأن يقوم بعد ركعتين حتى يتم الأربعة ويتمها عشاء؟
نعم هذا أفضل، ولا ينبغي له أن يأتي بجماعة ثانية والناس يصلون التراويح لأن يصير في تشويش. نعم.
أثابكم الله شيخنا. He said yes, this is better because it's not befitting that you make another jama'ah while the people are praying, because this will cause confusion and it will cause irritation. So as you said, this is what you should do.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. That will do for today then, inshallah. But we'd like to thank the Sheikh, Jazakallah khairan, for giving the class today, and inshallah, hopefully we would like to invite you with Sheikh Muhammad Malik to the UK to teach us our religion, inshallah.
إن شاء الله. شيخنا هذا آخر ما عندنا، وقد استفدنا الشيء الكثير من محاضرتكم، ونمد نمد إليكم الإعزام بأن تأتوا إلى بريطانيا مع الشيخ محمد المالكي حتى تعلمنا ديننا، ولاستقبلناكم ونحبكم.
مع الشيخ محمد إن شاء الله في الإجازة نأخذ زيارة لكم إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله، وأتمنى أن ألتقي بكم شخصيا وأستفيد من علمكم شيخنا، حفظكم الله.
أنا في مكة، إذا كان لكم زيارة أو كان في بعثة الآن تأتي لمكة للعمرة يمرون علينا نستفيد منهم
إن شاء الله. أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا. So the Sheikh said inshallah he will. Yeah. So the Sheikh said that inshallah he will try and visit with Sheikh Muhammad al-Maliki.
My name is Abdul Hakim. Akil.
You're cutting out a bit.
We'll speak to you soon. Jazakallah khair.
أثابكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا. حياكم الله شيخنا.
حياكم الله.
السلام عليكم.
Introduce myself.
عليكم السلام.
Yourself.
عفوا والأخ يقول أنه عبد الحكيم ويريد أن يتعرف بكم من طريقة الشيخ محمد المالكي. So I said,
سجل الرقم الجوال عندك.
طيب
00.
عفوا شيخنا، نحن على البث المباشر، فإن شاء الله أخذ من شيخ محمد المالكي بإذن الله.
طيب خلاص.
حفظكم الله. So the Sheikh wanted to give his number, but I'll take it outside Abdul Hakim. حفظك الله, because we're live. Yeah, it's probably.
Okay, I may end the stream and then you can carry on.
Okay.